Welcome to FilmProv, where everything is made up and my opinions don't matter. With the new Indiana Jones movie, The Dial of Destiny, premiering recently, I and many others have taken the time to look back and revisit the Indiana Jones series. Indiana Jones is one of the quintessential action-adventure movie franchises in American cinema. Coming from the collective minds of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, probably two of the greatest members of the film brat generation, the series follows famed archaeologist and adventurer Indiana Jones as he travels the world trying to find various mythological or historical artifacts and prevent them from falling into the hands of evildoers, usually Nazis. Now, as I've been rewatching the Indiana Jones movies, and many others have, I've been noticing a lot more discourse on Twitter and various other online spaces about the films themselves, particularly the original trilogy and their relationship to the most recent movie we got, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which came out in 2008, well over 15 years after the last of the original trilogy and over 10 years before this new one. Now, as to be expected with any revival of a classic franchise, there's a lot of hot takes and what I call revisionist history. Like, you know how when the Disney Star Wars movies started coming out and suddenly everyone was praising the prequels and shit-talking the new movies? Whereas before, the prequels were pretty unanimously agreed to be complete garbage. Well, I've been noticing a little bit of that happening as people see this new movie, criticize it, then go back to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, a movie that upon release was widely hated, and start praising it, saying it wasn't actually that bad. Now, my own take on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, well, I haven't seen the new one yet, but I think it's bad, not as bad as probably I thought back in the day, but this video is not a review of either of these movies, or really any of the Indiana Jones movies. I want to talk about one specific point that I'd seen come up several times over the years, but has been brought up even more recently with the new movie coming out. That point being the infamous nuking of the fridge from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and directly comparing it to a scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the second movie, in which Indy and his companions jump out of a plane and survive the fall by using a life raft to slow their descent and cushion their landing. The hot take being that people complain about the nuking of the fridge, but they give a pass to this equally ridiculous thing. Now, what I want to do is look at these two, compare them directly, and figure out why is it that people criticize the nuking of the fridge, but give a pass to the life raft parachute. So the scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in question finds Indiana Jones, our intrepid hero, stranded in a nuke town. Not the Call of Duty map, but a literal mock-up town built for the purposes of nuclear testing. And sure enough, a nuclear bomb is about to be detonated. He escapes by, what else? Hiding inside of a refrigerator. Sure enough, this works. He survives the nuclear blast and the radiation, seems to be able to walk out fine, and goes about the rest of his adventure. The explanation given that this is a lead-lined fridge, and therefore the lead lining prevents any radiation from getting to his body. When this movie first came out, this scene was loathed. People claimed it was one of the most ridiculous things in film history, and in fact, nuking the fridge has become a term synonymous with jumping the shark in terms of a franchise becoming so ridiculous it hits the point of unbelievability and bad taste. Now, the scene in Temple of Doom that we're looking at finds Indiana Jones and his two companions inside of a plane that is going down. The pilots have bailed, they've dumped all the fuel, the engines are failing, and what's worse, the parachutes have all been taken. Indiana Jones looks around and finds an emergency life raft. He grabs his companions, jumps out of the plane, deploys the raft, and it allows them to float down to relative safety and survive the impact. Now, I find the scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull to be unrealistic enough to take me out of the movie. It's not the main thing wrong with the movie, but I still understand why people hate it, and I don't like it myself. And I also find the scene from Temple of Doom to be passable, to be permissible. And I completely understand why people take issue with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull scene, but not the Temple of Doom scene. And the main reason for that I find to be twofold. One comes from what we know going in, and two is what we are presented in the shot. So what we know going in, first off, let's look at what we know about nuclear bombs and falls from a plane. So most people understand, even if they don't have a firm grasp of physics, that when you fall and you go fast and you hit the ground, you are injured and die. but if you fall slowly, you will be fine. That's basic acceleration and deceleration. I mean, I'm sure many of us remember dropping an egg from a 2-story height in physics class in high school. While we may not know the exact math of it, our brains do comprehend that if you can slow a descent enough, you can survive. This usually comes from something like a parachute. What they do, to give a brief description, is they expand the surface area without significantly contributing to the mass of the falling object, that being the person. The rate at which something falls is not determined by weight, but specifically by surface area and volume and density. Something that is really big but does not have a lot of mass falls slower than something smaller and a lot more dense. That's why a piece of metal falls fast, but a piece of paper does not. What a parachute does is it rapidly distributes and spreads out a lot of surface area that creates a lot more air resistance that slows you down. So, in our mind, we know that inflatables are generally very large but very light. Even if someone did not watch the movie, they could theorize that maybe it might not work, but they could see how it could work for a large inflatable like a life raft to slow a fall enough to be non-lethal. In fact, the Mythbusters tested this exact scenario from the movie in one of their earlier episodes. They found the myth to be busted, not because of the survivability of the fall, but just of the logistics of getting an inflatable out into the air while the plane is falling and being able to maneuver it enough that you're not going to fall off. Now, if that goes off without a hitch, if you are able to deploy it safely and you are able to control and prevent yourself from falling off, then it would work. And that is what we see in the movie. Indiana Jones is able to get out of the plane and deploy it and control its orientation enough to stay on without falling off. Now compare this to what we know about nuclear bombs. We know that a nuclear blast is one of, if not the most destructive forces ever created by a person. It has leveled cities. It destroys concrete, steel, and stone buildings. It vaporizes people. So asking someone to survive a nuclear bomb is a lot bigger of an ask for the audience to believe than surviving a fall. We know people survive falls. We know how to survive falls. A nuclear bomb is something that is just completely ridiculous. It's really on a whole other level. So that's what we know going in. But what we see on screen also is a lot more credible in Temple of Doom than what we see in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This is because A, Temple of Doom is practical, and B, what we actually see in frame is fairly survivable. Watch the shot from Temple of Doom as the raft falls. We literally see it all in frame. There's only one cut, and that's it. We see the raft inflate, deploy. We see Indy in it, even though, obviously it's a dummy. But we see the person in it. We see the raft inflate. We see it deploy. We see it start to slow. And then we see the impact on the ground. That is all practical. Our brains are literally watching something slow and hit the ground at an impact that does seem fairly survivable. It seems pretty tame. So even if you think about it, even if you start to get analytical and think, well, would it really survive? Would it really decelerate enough that it would be a survivable impact? Would he break? What we saw, your brain knows is survivable. And if you try and pick it apart and start to really get analytical, you could really do that about any point of any of the Indiana Jones movies. These movies are not very realistic. They're swashbuckling adventure movies. Indiana Jones would have died maybe halfway through Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, you don't go to these movies for that kind of realism. As long as what you are seeing is presented in a way that's believable, you can buy it. As long as it's sold in a way that doesn't make you question it, you can buy it. And that's why maybe not everyone buys this, but most people do. At least a lot more people buy it than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Which, let's look at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. First off, it's CGI. It's all computer-generated imagery. And our brains do recognize that. So we know that what we're looking at isn't real. What's more, what we are actually shown is, first off, the bomb completely decimating the town. It crumples and destroys the car that the bad guys are in. And then it flings the fridge, and we watch the fridge bang and bounce around on the ground. So, one, it's unrealistic after watching it destroy everything else that it wouldn't destroy the fridge. But then, even if, we buy that it doesn't destroy the fridge, we see the fridge bounce and bang around so much, and we know that Indy's in there, so logically he would essentially become a fine red mist inside of that fridge. He would at least be suffering from several severe bone fractures. I mean, he is not walking away from this, and that's just based off what we see in the movie. Now look, I have no problem with criticizing either of these two movies. Without counting the new movie, which again I haven't seen, they are the weaker two of the 4 Indiana Jones movies. You can criticize Temple of Doom for the fact that it's all set more or less in one location, or that Kate Capshaw's character is fairly annoying, or the racial insensitivity and the fact that there's a guy wearing brown face. You can criticize Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for the overuse of CGI, the tonal dissonance that introducing aliens into an Indiana Jones movie has, the fact that Indiana Jones just doesn't feel right as an old man. But I completely understand why people would criticize the nuking of the fridge and give a complete pass to falling out of the plane with a life raft. So people who want to defend Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which you can defend, there are things to like in that movie. You have to come up with better reasons why you like it than using whataboutism to try and cast shade and redirect to another movie, when that movie covered its bases fairly well, and of all the things wrong with Temple of Doom, that life raft fall really, I'd say, is not one of them. Well, this was just a short little video. I didn't even write a script for this one. I just started seeing people having opinions, and I thought I wanted to share mine. So you guys, let me know if you like this style of video. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified. Sound off down in the comments. What is your favorite Indiana Jones movie? What's your favorite Indiana Jones moment? What's your least favorite Indiana Jones moment? Maybe rank the movies. Personally, I have a soft spot for most of them. Even though I don't think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is that good of a movie, there are still things I like about it. And the original 3, I mean, are just absolute classics, I think. Maybe I'll do a video where I actually go in depth about them and go movie to movie, rank them, give full reviews. Let me know if you guys want to see that. All right, well, I don't know. You guys, don't feed the plants.